Time blocking is a time management method where a specific period of time is divided into smaller blocks of specific tasks. The most basic approach is to slice up your days in 1-hour blocks and assign tasks to those blocks. Typically, you start by writing down a to-do list outside of your calendar, and then you see how each item can fit in your week. The key to a well-executed time blocking method is to move from one task to the other when your time is up, regardless of the progress you made on the task you were working on. Just move on. You make progress by dedicating 100% of your focus to something specific in each block. Once your time is up, you'll get back to the unfinished task another day or another time slot. In this video, we'll cover the basics of time blocking through 4 key chapters: establishing non-negotiable time blocks, creating a color coding system, creating day themes, aligning time blocking with long-term thinking. But before we jump in straight into the 4 chapters, a few things to keep in mind. For this whole video, we're looking at time blocking on a weekly timeline. And it's important to understand that since we're looking at a template, the goal is to come up with a grid you can use every week to plan your time. This is not a one-off thing to plan just this current week. It's a scalable and repeatable model we're working on here. And in terms of the tool we're going to use, I recommend Google Calendar because it's the easiest to use in my opinion, and also everyone has a Google Calendar because everyone has a Gmail. But you can also use TickTick, which is my favorite productivity app of all time. And since we're working with a template, you don't even have to use an actual calendar app. It can be just a visual reminder of how you wish to use your time. So you can also draw it by hand and use colored markers, or use an online editing software like Canva. I'll put all the links in the video description down below. And with that, let's jump into the first chapter of this video. Non-negotiable time blocks. So when it comes to non-negotiable time blocks, they're here to help you get the super important stuff done. We all have things we absolutely have to do, but we're not necessarily sure when we'll have time to do them in the upcoming week. There are 2 types of non-negotiable time blocks: the ones you already know about, and the buffer ones, which you may need for important stuff you don't know about yet, or just stuff you know you have to do but you don't know when you're going to be able to do them. So the ones you already know about could be stuff like dropping off the kids to school, taking part in this weekly meeting that's super important, going to the gym. It's basically things that are very high on your priority list in life in general, regardless of their category. So you just put those blocks in your calendar where you know they'll happen. And for the buffer ones, it's a little more tricky. You basically have to allocate time slots during your week to things that are also super important but not redundant. For instance, you may have a report to hand in this week and that's only this week, and it's the most important thing on your list. Well, thanks to your non-negotiable buffer block, you have a time slot where you can work on it. And you can put in around 3 non-negotiable buffer blocks in your weekly calendar. That's a good base to start with. So now that we've placed our first time blocks into our weekly timeline, we need to find a color for them before stuff gets too messy. Event color coding is a huge part of time blocking. It's super useful to see what percentage of your time goes where, and this sometimes also helps realign your priorities. Sometimes people have no idea they spend X amount of time in meetings per week, for instance, and it's like, well, maybe you don't need to have that many meetings per week, right? So here's the color coding approach I like to use to see exactly where my time is going in a very quick visual way. Green blocks are for family, blue for work, orange for exercise, and gray for work and lunch. Ideally stick to 1-hour time blocks just because that's the core of the approach, and you can always shuffle them around depending on your week. You'll notice I didn't mention a color for non-negotiable time blocks. That's because, as we saw, those can be in any category and therefore of any color. So to signify a non-negotiable time block in the calendar, you can use an emoji in the title of the event instead of a color, so that this can work with any color or any category. The next key component of the strategy is day theming. Here is an example of what I mean by day theming applied to a weekly timeline. So Monday could be work kickoff day in general, weekly town hall overview of the week. Tuesday could be mostly meetings, so you get them out of the way, you batch them. Wednesday could be no meetings, the opposite, and 100% focus, so you're able to fully focus on your work. Thursday could be emails, phone calls, chats, essentially communication channels, so that again you batch those so you don't have to get bothered by them during the rest of the week. And Friday can be move day. So you go to the gym, you try to walk more around the office, you finish work early, and on the weekend, that's family. That's the theme of the 2 days of the weekend. And the key here is to try to always theme your days using the same pattern, so that again it becomes kind of a habit. When you know the overall theme of your day right from the moment you wake up, it's easier to get in the flow, to be more productive, and also you're less likely to have unexpected stuff pop up because you can schedule that unexpected stuff in the day that's with the most appropriate theme, right? So if you have an unexpected meeting, you can ask to move it to Tuesday, for instance, because that's your meeting day. The last key and probably most important component is aligning time blocking with long-term thinking. So many people give up on a productivity system because they don't try it for long enough. Don't stop at the first obstacle. Of course you won't nail down your first week perfectly with this approach. Keep a long-term horizon in mind. The longer you practice, the better you'll get at it. If you kind of zoom out of the weekly approach 4 times, right? So you get to a month, because 1 month is 4 weeks. And if you zoom out 12 times from that, you get to a year, right? 12 months, 1 year. In that sense, the weekly time blocking template we're working on here is very particular. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's not what actually matters. You probably have long-term goals in life, and they probably have nothing to do with theming or color coding your days, right? In this very moment, right? Well, that's kind of wrong. That's short-term thinking. Yes, long-term goals have everything to do with right now, this very moment, and organizing your life. I mean, there's not one right approach to reaching your goals in life, and everyone is different. I get that. But in the context of this method, a mistake a lot of people make is to think that weeks are just weeks and that the end goal is more important. Well, again, not really. When I say aligning time blocking with long-term thinking, I don't even mean to make sure your time blocking takes you to your goals. That's very hard to anticipate, right? I mean that you should pay attention to the fact that weeks lead to months, lead to years. And so having a great time allocation template prioritized properly cannot be dissociated from reaching your goals. And how you make sure your time blocking template is aligned with your long-term goals? Well, as we saw, you have non-negotiable time blocks, you color code your events to be able to visually see where your time is going. Is it going towards your goals? And you theme your days to help you organize your long-term thinking as well. So that's why long-term thinking goes hand in hand with short-term time blocking planning. That's it for this week's video. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you find my content useful, insightful. If you did, remember to like and subscribe if you're not already. It helps me grow the channel. It motivates me to create more content. Thanks again. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. See you in the next video.